Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into the shadows of the 1930s. It was a decade heavy with dread, right? But it was also pierced by some seriously profound words of resilience. We're looking at a piece of writing that definitely wasn't born out of peace. It came from a desperate need to find light in a really dark world. Nordahl Grieg's iconic Norwegian poem Til ungdommen, which you might know by its famous first line, Kringsett of Fiender. So what kind of courage does a generation actually need when the entire world feels completely unsafe? It's a heavy question, isn't it? Til ungdommen, which translates to the youth, doesn't sugarcoat things. It doesn't pretend the danger is gone, and it definitely doesn't offer a naive little pat on the back. Instead, it looks the younger generation right in the eye and asks, how are you going to face a terrifying future? It's literally asking them, and honestly us too, not to surrender tomorrow to hatred and fear. Picture this. You're a young person looking at the newspaper headlines in 1936. The horizon, it looked incredibly bleak. You've got fascism and Nazism aggressively expanding across Europe. The brutal Spanish Civil War had just kicked off, and the whole concept of democracy felt so fragile, like it was literally slipping right through the continent's fingers. Imagine those dark war clouds gathering right behind you, because that is the exact, intense atmosphere where this poem was forged. And it really was a world where people felt completely surrounded by enemies. So who wrote this? The mind behind it was Johan Nordahl Grieg. He was a Norwegian poet, a novelist, a playwright, and a highly engaged political activist. Grieg was absolutely not the kind of guy who just sat quietly in a safe, isolated room writing. No way. He was a restless public voice who traveled the world, fiercely debated the politics of his time, and truly wanted his literature to actively shape society. He was right in the thick of it all. In 1936, he writes Til ungdommen. Just 1 year later, in 1937, he's actually on the ground in Spain working as a war correspondent, witnessing the utter brutality of the Spanish Civil War firsthand. And then, tragically, in 1943, during the Second World War, Grieg loses his life. He was flying as an observer in an Allied bomber that was shot down over Berlin. So you see, he lived and ultimately died in the very heart of his era's darkest conflicts. The poem itself kicks off with a totally stark, undeniable reality. Kringsett av fiender, go in even tid. That means, surrounded by enemies, enter into your time. Think about that. Grieg doesn't start off by comforting you. He's saying, look, you're surrounded. The enemies are literally right here. But the command isn't to run away and hide. It's to step boldly into your era and own it. It's all about finding hope, but hope under immense, almost crushing pressure. The whole poem acts as this direct moral appeal to young people. Grieg is telling them exactly what their weapons need to be. When you ask, okay, what do I actually fight with? The poem answers that your sword and shield are defending life, pursuing truth, maintaining solidarity with your fellow humans, and above all else, protecting human dignity. Those are your real armaments against the dark. He's basically pitting two massive forces against each other here. On one side, you have the nasty tools of encroaching fascism, fear, hatred, violence, and despair. On the flip side, the pure light of humanism, courage, solidarity, and hope. He's challenging us to see that fighting fire with fire, yeah, that's just going to leave the whole world in ashes. Now, here's an absolutely crucial point. How Grieg redefines peace or fred in Norwegian. In this poem, peace is absolutely not weakness. It's not just sitting back quietly and avoiding conflict. No, it is a highly demanding, super active state of being. It requires intense moral courage. You don't just passively have peace. You have to actively create it by fostering human dignity. This idea is perfectly captured when he says, Stans theirs drift mot død, stans them med ånd, meaning, stop their drive towards death, stop them with spirit, or intellect, since the word ånd can mean spirit, mind, or intellect. It's this powerful call to fight the destruction of war, not with more bullets, but with art, with moral fortitude, with creation, and with an unyielding human spirit. Over time, these powerful words actually evolved into a massive song of democratic resistance. So it was born in the shadows of 1936, right? But a huge transformation happened in 1952. That's when the Danish composer Otto Martinsen set the poem to this incredibly beautiful, solemn melody. It officially became a song. And fast forward decades later to 2011, this anthem became something a whole nation would lean on during one of Norway's absolute darkest moments. On July 22, 2011, Norway suffered horrific twin terror attacks in Oslo and on the island of Utoya. It was a targeted attack on government buildings and a youth political summer camp. In the days of just unimaginable grief that followed, Till ungdommen was sung by thousands and thousands of people holding roses in public squares everywhere. It served as this incredible pillar of democratic resistance, a way for a mourning nation to physically stand together. You might be wondering, why this specific song? Well, it all comes back to these lines. Skaper vi menneskeverg, skaper vi fred. If we create human dignity, we create peace. Faced with a terrifying act of extremist violence, the Norwegian people used Grieg's words to remind themselves that their response absolutely had to be rooted in humanity, not vengeance. Now, to be completely fair and impartial here, Nordahl Grieg's own historical legacy is, well, it's complicated. While the poem preaches peace and humanism, Grieg himself was a controversial figure. Back in the 1930s, he was actually a staunch supporter of the Soviet Union and even defended Stalin's Moscow trials. So there's an ongoing historical debate about the clash between the poet's rigid political ideologies and the universal humanism of his poem. But regardless of Grieg's personal flaws, the poem itself managed to completely transcend its creator. It became a universal symbol that truly belongs to the people. And that message? It gives us the courage we need for an unsafe world today. Just think about the anxieties we're dealing with right now. We've got political polarization tearing communities apart, unchecked online hatred, the very real return of modern war and authoritarianism, and this heavy, pervasive climate anxiety about our future. The war clouds of 1936 look chillingly similar to the global uncertainties we're navigating right this minute. That's why the message of Till ungdommen is still so urgently needed. But listen, Grieg doesn't just leave us sitting in despair. He issues this brilliant call to action. Unbygde kraftverker, ukjente stjerner, skap dem. That means unbuilt power stations, unknown stars, create them. He is literally telling the youth to look up and build. He wants us to focus on innovation, on science, on discovery, and on creating a better world, rather than letting the architects of destruction dictate what happens next. So it brings us to a really profound question. Are we going to surrender the future to fear? When you scroll through the news and feel that anxiety creeping in, how will you respond? It takes a deliberate, conscious choice to rise above the despair and actually embrace the hard work of building a brighter tomorrow. Ultimately, Till ungdommen does not tell young people that the world is safe. It tells them not to surrender the future to fear. It demands that we armor ourselves with human dignity and actively create the peace we want to see. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. As you step out into your own time, I want you to ask yourself, what will you build to stop the drive towards death? And how will you create the unknown stars of tomorrow?